Morning walking fans, just left Polmear and you are heading to Fowey to start off with, to cross on the ferry at Fowey. We've got around Gribben Head, which is quite a landmark. We're walking the paths that Daphne du Maurier would have walked on, probably with the dogs. We're very close to two places in which she lived, the most famous of which is proper name Manderley, but immortalised in the great Gothic novel Rebecca. Last night I dreamt I was at Manderley again, one of the famous opening lines of any story ever. Anyway, this one is a walk of two halves. The guidebooks are telling us that the first part of the walk round to Fowey is relatively benign. Now, I've come across that before. But after we cross the Fowey on a little ferry, we walk all the way to Polperro in what is described by the guidebook as a connoisseur's section. I think connoisseur in this context means knackering. So it's our longest distance this week. And really looking forward to it, actually. I'm really up for today. Yesterday, has to be said, Mevergissey to Par Sands did not do it for me. It was hard. Charleston's nice enough, but over-commercialised. Nice to meet Kelvin and Sonia from Hale again, having met them the day before. But the charms of yesterday's footpath failed to win me over. And those of you watching this may do that stretch and think it's superb. And I'm not influenced by the fact that I fell. In fact, that was one of the highlights of the day for me. But on we plod. Polperro Harbour and Quay down below us. Well, it wasn't sailors I heard earlier on, it's swimmers. The Rashleigh Inn. Rashleigh, they were the owners of Manderley. And yet again I asked the question, where did they get their money from? Old lifeboat station to the left of me. Now a knick-knack shop. Well, walking fans, bit of an early Navcom error today. This looked very much like the SWCP, and I blatantly ignored a set of steps much lower down this path, which it turns out is the correct way. So my excuse is the GPS locator was telling me I was further to the left than in reality I actually was. So what I thought was the mighty southwest coast path is in fact some old lane that takes me up to a place, or us up to a place that would have been entirely useless. We would have not been able to get back onto the proper coastal path, and that just sticks in the claw. So we have to retrace our steps. It's quite muggy. Andy is disrobing every 100 yards or so. I wonder how many more layers he's got to go. He's down to his last two. We've just had an official confirmation.
It won't be going any lower.
He's going no lower. He may take the gilet off. I'm in that I can't be asked to stop and change mode, which always ends up badly. But at least I've not fallen yet. Okay, I fell. Fuck!
But the other one was about a 5-second delay. That one's about, 5.5 second delay before saying you haven't fallen yet and actually falling. I'm not laughing much.
I've never seen such a clenched mouth in my entire life.
Bursting.
Inside he's howling.
Well, no damage done with my fall. On we trudged southwards towards Gribben Head, walking over 400 million year old Devonian rocks, apparently full of fish fossils in these parts, the very early fish in those ancient seas. I look forward to getting to the Daymark Tower at Gribbin Head.
Well, just above Little Gribbin, overlooking St Austell Bay on a very calm day. And I'm accompanied by the cheerful chatter of the birds, woodland birds and meadow birds. It's a very harmonious, as I say, cheerful chatter. And every now and again you hear the busy buzz of the bumblebee, which is so satisfying to hear. Now and again the squawk of the gulls, and the ever-present calming sound of today, a very gentle, almost lapping sea. Gloriously peaceful. Well, Andy and me have reached Gribbin Head, and this is, I think, called the Daymark, but it's quite dramatic. We don't know much about it. We think it's called the Daymark. Any updates on Padlock?
Yes, it has a Squire DCL1 from our discus range, 17mm stainless steel.
Retailing at?
$17.99 when it was introduced, and I think about $42.99 now.
Is that wholesaler?
That'll be retail, including VAT. End of.
And that's as much as we know about the Waymark Tower, or Daymark Tower. I don't know the bloody name of it. You have a sense that has something to do with navigation and maritime activity.
We left behind the 250 foot or so high cliffs at the Daymark Tower and dropped down to Polridmouth, a beautiful cove, manicured lawns, a neat cottage being faithfully tended by some local gardeners. We took our coffee here and had a lovely chat to a local walking her 2 spaniels. We pondered over Daphne du Maurier, and we also wondered and worried somewhat about the pong coming from the sea. We hoped it was from rotting seaweed. We feared it was from yet another discharge of untreated sewage into the seas around Britain. A 2023 national disgrace, and yet another crime on the long list committed by the government. In thoughtful mood, we sipped our coffee and moved on.
I just come into Foy, and walked past a place full of dogs barking, which is annoying and shattering what should be a peaceful estuarine environment. But I've just walked past the ultimate second homeowner location, Ready Money Cops. Yep, you heard it first, Ready Money Cops. It's the name of the place down at the bottom of the hill that I'm just walking up into Foy.
Foy was neat, prosperous and upmarket. Plenty of cottages with cliched names like the Captain's Cockpit and the Coast Guard's Lookout. No doubt there was a smuggler's inn as well. Anyway, what's not to like in handsome little Foy? A snug little place, somewhat pleased with itself perhaps. As we waited for the ferry, peace was shattered by one of those ghastly families who just don't know how to behave. Fortunately, they didn't catch the ferry, and we whizzed across from Foy to Polruin, and it was a cracking, yet another cracking ferry trip. Andy and I loved it very much indeed.
So Polruin, what a handsome place this is. Oh my god, it's a bit of a Escher type structure, isn't it? Having enjoyed the short but rather lovely ferry crossing from Foy to Polruin, we're now on what the guidebook calls the connoisseurs section. And if nothing else, Andy and me are a fine pair of connoisseurs. Well, that's what I think people say about us. Certainly has a double S and an ER in it. So away we go. 7 miles to Polperro or thereabouts, and I'm feeling good. How you feel, buddy?
I'm feeling enthusiastic.
He didn't sound it, did he?
No.
Just had some local intelligence, it's all uphill. Lovely. From a woman whose hairdo looked like she'd been in a wind tunnel. Has to be said. Well, the occasional vagaries of signage on the coast path do amuse. This is the 4th finger post that we've passed in the last 10 minutes, all of which say we've remained in exactly the same position, because the distance given to Polperro on 4 consecutive signposts is 6.5 miles. It must be less, lads, it must be. Coombe. 3 miles to go. Absolutely marvellous walking this. Well, well on our way to Polperro now, about 3 miles to go. And the coastal path here has been very heavily bushwhacked. And that's where I am. Looking back to what we've already walked, that's Pencarrow Point. And a series of idyllic and peaceful little bays. And talking of bushwhackers, here he comes.
Absolutely wonderful. That's it. I can't speak yet.
No, I can't say a lot, but this is as good as it gets on the southwest coast path. South Cornwall, on our way to Polperro. It truly is magic. Well, I mentioned daunting, there it is ahead, up the other side of this great big valley, or Coombe. Well, I've just climbed a monster slope with lots of steps in it, well over 100. And I can hear this clanging of bell. And I thought, maybe a celestial being is summoning me. Turns out it's a ship's buoy out on the rocks. And it's quite a spiritual sound, really. The occasional clang of the bell. Oh, fellow walkers about to come down and embarrass my ineptitude. That's a monster Coombe just completed. Right at the very top, met a pair of fellow walkers. Bloke first, who stood aside from me, quite rightly. Uphill traffic gets priority. And I said to him, "That's quite a slug up there." And he said some stupid comment. Right. Yes, it is. The correct answer is to say, "Well done for getting to the top." So he's one of my fellow walkers who goes into my hall of shame. She was much more convivial, just smile, and allowed me to pass through as I staggered uphill. But that was a tough old cookie, but we've done it. Just walking on Raphael Cliff, which I rather like. Splendid, lofty, 300-foot plus cliff on the final approach to Polperro. And my thoughts have turned to song for the day, and it has to be a song that expresses, for me, joy. I think it's a week on Friday I'm seeing Springsteen with my darling Emma. So it has to be a Bruce Springsteen song. I've not had one for quite a few legs now. And the album now, which I think Nebraska's up there for me, but Western Stars, the album he released a couple of years ago. He won't play any of those songs when we see him. They're not rockers, and some of them will be very difficult to perform on stage. But my word, there's some fantastic songs on there. And the penultimate one, penultimate song, is probably in my top few Springsteen songs. And it's called Hello Sunshine. And superficially you might think it's about his battles with depression over the years, I'm not sure. But it's a beautiful song about travelling. It's joyous. It expresses distance in a very poetic way right at the end, about things being miles away, and it's just lovely. And this walk has been absolutely outstanding. Sometimes the outstandingness of a walk is bracketed by ones that are less so, and that's kind of what this coast path experience is a bit like. Some days are a little bit getting from A to B. But I tell you what, a bad day on the coast path is far better than a good day at work, however much you might enjoy work. But this is joyous. Just need to get round that headland, and Polperro beckons, and its many charms. Let's sit down. Will be good. Polperro at last. I just went the wrong way. To my utter annoyance, and probably to Andy's as well, because he's miles ahead of me. It's the most expensive car park, second only to Saunton Sands. It's technically illiterate, so you have to have coins. Look at that. Look at the prices. Outrageous. And you only can put coins in. Just bollocks. Can't stand that sort of thing. It's just pathetic organisation, privately owned, penalises locals. And on top of that, Polperro charges you 50 pence for a piss. So neither of us are inclined to spend that amount. It's supposed to be a penny, not a 50 penny. Hello, Greta. I love you.
Notwithstanding the annoyance of Polperro car park, this was a fantastic day out on the coast path. And I've already made my arguments about choice of song. Hello Sunshine. Didn't have much, but it was a superb walking day. And looking forward to the next stretch, taking us even further east from Polperro to Port Wrinkle.